Tonight our speaker is David S. from the Wicked Sober Group in Peachtree City. Did I say it right?
Hi everybody, I'm David Stoller and I'm an alcoholic. It's good to be here and it's good to be sober, and it wasn't always that way. And I want to thank Tim for inviting me out to speak. Wes put that together. And thank Trey and my buddy Todd, my brothers from the Wicked Sober Group, Alcoholics Anonymous, that came up here to support me and listen to my drivel one more time. They hear me probably entirely too much, but they love me anyway, and I'm grateful for men like that in my life. You know, I'm supposed to be here tonight, and that doesn't sound like much, but at an early age, I thought I wasn't supposed to be here. You know? And I spent a lot of my life trying to fix God's mistake. You know? And what you'll hear in my story tonight is the transformation from thinking I was mistaken and there's no use for me on this planet to knowing fully that I'm supposed to be here. And God's got a part in this deal. I learned that in Alcoholics Anonymous. Now, I'm sure some of you came in after we said the Serenity Prayer, and some of you might have been on your phones while we were saying the Serenity Prayer, or you're just mailing it in or whatnot. I know I can still do that after many years in Alcoholics Anonymous. But somebody here, and I don't know who, and you might not even know right now, but somebody here needs to hear what I have to say tonight. You know? And so if we could all just take a minute to invite our God into the room. And ask that power to use me to speak what you might need to hear tonight. Okay. So I have a sobriety date. The date of my last drink is December 16th, 2009. And that's not my first sobriety date. My first sobriety date was February 22nd of 1986. And since then I've taken 4 one-year cakes and 3 3-year cakes, 2 9-year cakes, and just took a cake for 14 years. And I did the math the other day. I'm 57 years old, and I've spent 2/3 of my life in and around the rooms of Alcoholics Anonymous. And I didn't plan that. You know, if you had told me that when I went to my first meeting that I'd still be here at 57 years old, I would have told you you're crazy. I have a home group. That's the Wicked Sober Group of Alcoholics Anonymous in Peachtree City. And we meet. We have a men's meeting that meets at 5:30 on Mondays. And we have a speaker meeting, co-ed speaker meeting every Friday night at 7:30. And we just started that meeting in January. And I'm glad that's my home group. You know, I feel, I don't know if it's pride or whatnot, but I get emotional with my home group. I'm just so happy to be there and be a part of these guys' lives. And we started the speaker meeting, like I said, the first of the year, and we've been just been blessed with one great speaker after another down there. And this is a meeting that as I shared with some of the guys, you know what, the people in Peachtree City and Noonan didn't even know they wanted. You know, they tried to stop us from starting this meeting, and we started that. And you know, there's a buzz in the room. You know, there's a buzz in this room. I felt incredibly comfortable walking in here. It reminded me of some of the clubhouses that I walked into Alcoholics Anonymous in the late '80s in California, where I'm from, and podiums like this and rooms like this with the traditions and whatnot on the walls and lockers for each meeting to store their stuff and see your little history bookcase out front, you know. And I know I'm in the right place. And I have a sponsor that knows that he sponsors me, Todd B. from the Wicked Sober Group, and he knows that because we meet for lunch almost every Tuesday at Jim and Nick's restaurant in Sharpsburg. And he's been sober a long time, and he's got a sponsor that's been sober a long time, that this used to be his home group here at NABA. And I'm grateful for that. And I'm blessed to have a few guys that call me their sponsor, and I know I sponsor them because they show up at my house on a regular basis. And they don't need to call, but they need to be at my house. You know, I need to lay eyes on them. And they do that. And I'm grateful. You know, it keeps me sharp. It keeps me in the work of Alcoholics Anonymous, because I know I can't give away what I don't have. You know, and I like what I got today. You know, I like what I got. But I never really know what I'm going to share about when I come here. The one thing I'm going to tell you is my name, my home group, my sobriety date, and we've got that far, and I come from a normal family, not a healthy family, normal. We were screwed up, and mom hated dad, and dad hated mom, and my sisters hated me, and I hated them, and the dog pissed in the house a lot. Figure that out. It had anxiety, and if you lived in our house, you would. It was not a happy place, and I didn't realize that till I realized it young, but I just knew I never felt right in my own skin. Felt like a visitor from another planet. Nobody gave me the tourist guide. We're here in rooms, coming in here. When people started to talk about things that I understood, was when I came to Alcoholics Anonymous. It's things like, I always felt less than or better than, and that was the case. I could hang out with older people or younger people. I couldn't get along with my peers, and that's how I was. And like I said, I lived in this crazy house, and on the outside it looked great. We had a house with a pool. I was born in Santa Barbara, California, but we moved when I was 4, but we had a pool, and we lived on a cul-de-sac full of kids, and everybody's mom was your mom. If you've been in a neighborhood like that and you got whacked by some strange lady, that's how our street was. You got out of line, and that was okay. But we had fun, and we had wide open fields to ride our bikes in and build forts and all these things. But I started stealing when I'm 4. I don't know why. I like stealing. We got any reformed thieves in here? Maybe you're currently a thief and you just haven't got honest yet. But I love stealing. And what it did was it got me out of me. I felt something that I didn't feel before, and I got hooked on sugar at a young age. I was a candy dealer in the 4th grade, in the 5th grade, and just like with drugs and alcohol, I was not a good dealer because I could barely just feed my own habit. I could barely sell enough to re-up the next morning. And video games came out, and I get hooked on video games, and I do everything for video games that I ended up doing for drugs and alcohol, lying, cheating, stealing, and all get out of me. I can't stand being in my own skin. It's not good to be David Stoller, And I didn't see any brand new people here tonight, and I didn't see anybody here looking for a sponsor either. And maybe you might be too shy to raise your hand, and it's okay. But if you're new, or even if you've been here for a while, and it's not good to be you, well, if you haven't done the work, you ain't got a right to claim nothing about what Alcoholics Anonymous has. Alcoholics Anonymous isn't about going to meetings and drinking coffee, smoking cigarettes, and telling lies. Maybe get a bunch of commitments. Our book doesn't talk about it. This here doesn't talk about it. Yeah. It says we get to do these things once we've done some other things called 12 steps. See, I didn't have any of that. And I didn't come from a spiritual house. We didn't talk about God. Remember the first time I heard about Jesus, and they talked about this guy willingly getting nailed to the cross. And I know I'm in the Bible Belt. I hope it don't offend anybody, but I hear that. I'm 5 years old, and I said, what a punk. Who the hell would do that? My God, what a moron. And I got sent to Sunday school when I was 7. I got kicked out when I was 9 because I wanted to play doctor with the girl in the closet when I wanted to learn about Jesus. She might have been the Virgin Mary, I don't know. But anyway, and I went back to that church group at about 12, because I had started drinking, so it was about 13, and they used to have $1 bus to go to the beach. They'd take you to the beach for $1 all day long and bring you home, and I'm down there selling dope and bringing a 5th of booze with me in my beach bag with the church kids, and they didn't like that, And I get invited to the Catholic youth group, and that was fun. And of course, what do they do after group? Well, you go get the weed, we'll go get the beer, and we'll go play volleyball. All right. But I didn't have any God in my life, and we didn't talk about it at home. And I started getting. I had taken drinks before, but never got a buzz. First time I got a buzz, I was 12 years old, and mixed Coors Light and Southern Comfort with some guys that I thought were real cool. They're about 5 years older than me. They smoked cigarettes and drove hot rods and wore leather jackets, had long hair, and they were cool. And you see, that's my real thing, is I want to be cool, right? just want to be cool. And the problem is, it's always somebody else is cool. And if I could be like Trey, I'd be cool. If I could be like Todd, I could be cool. But I'm me, and it sucks, right? These guys are cool, and I want them to like me. And I told my mom I wouldn't drink, I wouldn't smoke. I was already smoking though. But I won't drink, I won't do drugs. I know I'll end up with a needle in my arm in the gutter dead real quick if I do that stuff. So, but they asked me if I want to have a beer, and I'm all, yep. Yeah, we drink Coors Light, Southern Comfort, and the first time I get a buzz. And it closed up that hole. It was all of a sudden it was good to be here. It was good to be me. And the only problem was there was no girls around. I said, fine, man, I could finally talk to the girl I want to talk to. And I don't know if you're like me, but when it comes to members of the opposite sex or who I'm attracted to, I can't talk to the ones I really want to talk to, and the ones that talk to me I don't really want to talk to. But I end up with them, otherwise I end up alone. Right? And and from that day forward, I knew it didn't matter that I woke up the next morning with a hangover. I didn't know what it was. I had a really bad headache. My vision was blurry, and I had thrown up on the bathroom wall. And but I knew I was going to do that again. I couldn't wait to do it. And I'm 12 years old, at 14, it's the summer before my freshman year of high school, and I'm tripping on acid with my buddy David Crocker, which anybody still use zigzags to roll weed. The guy in the zigzag pack. Well, my buddy David Crocker looked just like the zigzag man. And we're tripping on acid, and we go into the local pizza parlor, and there's a bunch of his friends. He's older than me, and these people just graduated, and they're all drinking on fake IDs, and they pull me across, and they're like, yeah, Dave, there's a legend about you at the high school already. What a maniac you are. That was the proudest day of my life. Yeah. They're talking about me, and I lived that forever. Bad press is better than no press. If they're talking about me, that's a good thing, and I rode that for a long time. And you know what? If I had gone to treatment then, they would have told me I was an alcoholic. They would have told me I was a drug addict in treatment. But what the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous, it asked me two questions on the first page of chapter 4. It says, if when you want to quit entirely, to paraphrase, you can't stay stopped. Or when drinking, you have little or no control over how much you drink. You see, I had never drank or used against my will at that time. That's what those two statements are really saying. I drink and use when I don't want to. Right? You see, I don't see a problem with if I go to a backyard kegger party and my mission is to drink as much out of that keg for my $2 as I can, hopefully get screwed up out of my mind. Maybe I'll get lucky and meet her, before I end up passed out under a bush, right? Throwing up on myself. See, that wasn't a problem, because that was my mission. See, that was my mission. And the problem started much later on when I wanted to control and enjoy what I'm drinking and what I'm using. But every time I drank, I'm just going to get loaded. And that's what I did. And yeah, did I have consequences? My parents didn't like it. The school didn't like it. The police didn't like it. You might have not liked it. I didn't care. It was worth the price. Right? And leave me alone. There's no problem here. I'm doing exactly what I want to do. Exactly what I want to do. But what happens when I just want to have a half-pint buzz? Now, we laugh in Alcoholics Anonymous and say, who would ever want to have a half-pint buzz? Yet, the book tells me that the great obsession of every abnormal drinker is to be able to drink and use, to be able to drink like a gentleman or a lady. Right? And now there came a point, a long time later, with alcohol, that I just wanted to have pint buzz. I just wanted to take the edge off. I'm tired of going to jail. I'm tired of going to prison. I'm tired of wrecking cars. I'm tired of losing jobs. I'm tired of wanting to die every day. That was a long time coming. I got to Alcoholics Anonymous, like I said, February 22nd of 1986. I was 18 years old. I spent my 19th birthday in that treatment center, and they told me I was a drug addict and an alcoholic, and all I thought I had was a minor crack problem. Because I had smoked some crack that I didn't want to smoke. Right? And but I hadn't drank anything I didn't want to drink. And from 1986 until 1996, I'm in and out of Alcoholics Anonymous, and I'm crackhead. Right? And I didn't like Narcotics Anonymous because they all thought they were badasses, and Cocaine Anonymous had hot chicks but no program, and Alcoholics Anonymous had recovery and reasonably attractive ladies, and they had a lot of meetings, and it fit my schedule, and I kind of wanted what they had. Right? But I wasn't an alcoholic, but I would say I was. So I could share. And I'd get sponsors, and I would take steps, or start to take steps, and stop. And I'd get sober and start to take some steps. And I'm doing all these things I talked about, going to lots of meetings, got lots of commitments, smoking lots of cigarettes, telling lots of lies, and always finding it necessary to take a drink. Like I told you, I had 16 months and went out. I went out because I got stuck on a 4-step because I didn't trust a sponsor. We talked about sponsors, raise your hand if you wanted a sponsor, and it takes a lot of trust and a lot of faith, and a lot of courage to trust your stuff with somebody else. And I had heard this guy that was my sponsor talking about somebody else in a way that I didn't think was right, and I wasn't going to trust him with my stuff because don't you know I am the worst, most horrible human being in the world. Jeffrey Dahmer is a punk compared to me. I guess nobody knows who Jeffrey Dahmer is. But I think I'm the worst guy in the world, and I can't share my what I find to be garden variety bullshit with, right? And you see, like I told you, I want you to like me. I want to be cool, but you see, I can't hurt this guy's feelings. I mean, he might drink if David Stoller fires him as a sponsor, don't you know? That'd be horrible. So I end up getting loaded, and I come back in and I get a sponsor and I share that inventory and I start making amends and I start sponsoring guys and I quit making amends. And then I meet her, the mail order bride from God. You got to watch that one. She checked all the boxes, right? And this is long before Tinder or anything. This was and I knew very early on, like this, there's too many red flags here. This isn't going to work. Doesn't matter how much I love. We're in love, don't you know? And we're going to get married, and we're going to do all this stuff, and I know pretty early on I can't do it. But you know what? I don't have the courage to tell her to beat feet, or I don't even have the courage to just quit calling her and ghosting her. No. And so and I find out later on that she's the same way. And so we get married. I drink the night before. And drinking on the honeymoon. Started smoking crack not long after that. And I was, and all because I'm violating myself. In the end, I'm violating myself. I want to think rules don't apply to me. And I want to think I can do things and not pay a consequence for them. And I ended up going to prison in August of 1996. I like to rob liquor stores with squirt guns to support my crack habit. And I'm the agua pistola bandito. And I spent 7 years in California State Prison. Not a lot to say about that. I got real close with God there. I was sober there. I was active in Alcoholics Anonymous, Narcotics Anonymous in the California Department of Corrections for the 7 years I was there, and I come out and I'm going to be the AA poster boy, don't you know? And I get out and I'm doing the deal. I learned a skill while I was in there that I could actually make good money out on the streets, and I'm doing that. And that job actually had me working on the grounds of the two largest drug and alcohol treatment centers in the nation at the time. Unfortunately, COVID closed them both. And I'm going to a ton of meetings. I got a sponsor. I'm doing the steps again, and I stop again. I stopped living this principled life. I'm doing everything on the outside. I don't know if we got any people here that might have a checkbox program. I'm not asking you to raise your hand, but you might take a look at yourself and ask yourself if you're just mailing it in every day. Boop, I went to a meeting, check. Boop, I had my shoes under the bed, so I prayed for the 15 seconds it took me to pull my shoes out from under my bed. Check. Oh, I called my sponsor and left a message knowing that he wasn't going to answer at this time of day. Check. All right. And I read page 86 and 87, and blah, 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 right? Just racing through it. And what happens there is I'm out, and I'm doing great, and I'm going to 10 meetings a week. I'm sponsoring 5 guys. I go on 3 panels a month. I got commitments all over town. My home group was a hall like this, the Rafters in Santa Clarita, and they were wanting me to be the chair of the steering committee. I've arrived, don't you know? I felt bad. I actually heard this young girl tell me a long time ago. She's like, yeah, my goal in life is to become the chair of the Rafters. I'm like, wow. That's a low bar. I'm going to come in, I'm just going to be somebody. And I'm not putting down Alcoholics Anonymous at all, because I'm as alcoholic as can be, and I love Alcoholics Anonymous. But there's a lot more in life than just Alcoholics Anonymous. But I ended up taking a drink, taking a hit, and I had gone from doing a book study with a sponsee to the liquor store, to the dope spot, to the hotel, in a hospital 5 days later with staph infection, both my feet, almost dead. At 9.5 years sober. Going to 10 meetings a week and sponsoring 5 guys and doing 3 panels a month and doing all this stuff. All checkbox. I'm a prisoner of Alcoholics Anonymous. I would hear things in Alcoholics Anonymous like this, if you put anything in front of your recovery, you're sure to drink. And I thought my recovery meant meetings. I thought my recovery meant how many commitments I had in Alcoholics Anonymous. I've read this book a lot of times, cover to cover. I don't know how many I've gone through that were brand new that I highlighted up and did, but I never saw the line on page 19 that talks about the greatest example of what we do in Alcoholics Anonymous is what we do out there in our respective homes, occupations, and affairs. Right? Homes, occupation, and affairs. Where nobody gives a shit what my sobriety date is, who my sponsor is, what my home group is, how many commitments I have, how many meetings I go to, and how long my string of chips is hanging off my cup if you're new in a rehab. No. They care about what I do and if I keep my commitments. Right? That my yes is yes and my no is no. And so what does that look like? It's my mom's birthday. We'll just say she's going to be 60 years old and it's her birthday and I've got the coffee commitment at NABA. Never occurs to me that I might ask my friend Trey, hey Trey, it's my mom's birthday. I really ought to be there. This is a big deal. Could you cover my coffee for me? No, I'm the AA poster boy. I'm willing to go to any lengths, don't you know? I'm willing to sacrifice my mother's birthday so I can keep the coffee commitment, so I can actually be there. But keeping the commitment means either you're there or you got somebody to fill it for you, right? See? And in the last 14 years, I have not missed my mother's birthday for any reason. I was just out in California. She's turned 85. I was out there 2 weeks ago, and she's in a memory care facility, and she recognized me when I came in, and we took a selfie, and I showed it to her 10 minutes later, and she didn't know who was in the picture. Yeah. And I knew that's how it was going to be. And you see, my mind tells me, why even bother go? She's not going to remember. But Alcoholics Anonymous has taught me to show up. So what happened was I told you I went out and I've lost this conscious contact with God. I had a conscious contact with God, but I quit doing what's necessary to keep that. Our book talks about not just keeping it, but growing in understanding and effectiveness. And basically what had happened was I had arrived. I was comfortable with exactly where I was. I didn't want anything to change. Why can't we back in when we're talking in step 3 of the book talks about wanting to be the director, right? And really what that is about is I want to take a picture and I want the freaking world to stop right here and never move again. This is perfect. And, unfortunately the world doesn't work that way. And, what happened was I said I had been an alcoholic, and I became an alcoholic in those 3 years I was out between May of 2006 until December 16th of 2009. And for the first time in my life, I got a crap ton of money in the bank. I got enough money to drink and use like I want to drink and use. I could party like a rock star for a long time, right? Not just a few days, because, I've just been a waiter most of my life, and, if I miss too many days of work, I'm going to be homeless, And I started doing that. And I went out, and like I said, I ended up in the hospital, and I tried to come back to Alcoholics Anonymous right away, and I couldn't get that sobriety feeling. Now, granted, I wasn't willing to get a new sponsor or even go back to the old one. I wasn't willing to do anything but show up at meetings and whine about how you people treated me badly when I went out. And I got to that point that the book talks about where we're at the jumping off place. And God either is or he isn't. We can seek spiritual help or drink to the bitter end. And I says, I'm going to drink to the bitter end because I've done your deal. Come on, how can you go from a book study, sponsoring all these people, going to all these meetings, and go get drunk? It doesn't work. I'm the guy in chapter 5. Rarely have we seen a person fail his thoroughly followed a path. I followed it. I'm that guy. It's not going to work for me. It's not going to work. And I tried to drink and use myself to death, and what I found out was, now again, I'm smoking a lot of crack. I don't want to smoke, but I think I've got some friends here. Anybody ever have eyeball prints on their rearview mirror? But I'm starting to take drinks. I don't want to drink. For the first time in my life, God, can I just have a half pint buzz? No. I can't do it. And I end up, smoking every day and end up drinking a liter of vodka every day for 3.5 years. And I had met my wife, and I told her, don't fall in love with me or the rebound girl. That was our second date, We're going to date for 90 days. We're going to have a good time. I'm going to kick you to the curb, and I hope we can be friends. And day 91, I took her to meet my mother. Go figure. And, we've been married since, we've been together since that time when we got married December 28th of 2007. And we're still married, and I'd love to tell you all is bliss, and we are happily married every day. And that is not true. She doesn't like me a lot of the time, and I don't like her. And that's when love has to step in. It's like meetings Alcoholics Anonymous. I don't really know anybody here, but I've about 4 people that I've had a conversation with, and I don't know the rest of you, and I probably don't like most of you. That's all good, and you probably don't like me. And it's okay, because that's where love comes in. That's where love's got to come in, is when I'm doing things I don't want to do with people I don't want to be around. And like I say, you know what? If you like me, you haven't known me long enough, and if you don't like me, you haven't known me long enough. But she told me though, December 16, 2009, if I come home, you're drunk, you're gone. And by this time, the money's run out, and I'm just a sloppy corner pissing drunk. And she's having to go buy me my bottle at 6 o'clock in the morning. California liquor stores open at 6. I don't know what time they open here. Right? And they sell liquor on Sundays. And she would be showing up in her work clothes at 6 o'clock in the morning buying a fifth of cheap vodka. And the people in our small town that we lived in probably thought she was the alcoholic. But it was me. But she says, I come home, you're drunk, you're gone. And I couldn't not drink. See, I've been trying to not drink for about the last year. And I can't not do it. And I refuse to go to Alcoholics Anonymous because it won't work. And I don't have enough money to put myself in rehab or even a detox. And I wanted to die. And that day I tried to take my life. I was going down a canyon road to go in to meet my drug dealer, drunk off my ass, and I had stole some money from my wife, and I'd never done that. My conscience wouldn't let me do that, and I figured it was time to die. And there was a truck coming the other way, and I pulled my car across that center line. And we went head on at over 100 mile an hour combined impact. And I'm here. I'm supposed to be here. Supposed to be here. You know, and crazy thing was, is I came out of a coma after 2 weeks, and I don't want to be here, and I'm angry. Jesus Christ, I'm a loser. All scorecards in my life read 0. I can't even kill myself. I'm an absolute loser. This is what I'm thinking. And the doctor comes in after about 3 days of being out of this coma, and I'm still not in my right mind, but I can hold the conversation. And he tells me, it's a good thing you tried to crash your car. I didn't tell anybody I tried to commit suicide. I didn't tell anybody that, not even at the podium, for 7 years until the statute of limitations run out on the potential crime that I had committed. And he says, it's a good thing you crashed your car, because when we opened you up, see, I had gone septic, and Christmas Eve, they took me into surgery. I had gone septic, and I'd blown up like a 9-month pregnant woman from septicemia, and they told my wife that I was going to die Christmas Day. But we're going to do one more MRI and see if we can't find really what's going on, because they didn't know. They found I had severed my small intestine, and while they were in there, they also found that I had perforated that intestine long before, and I was slowly poisoning myself to death. And he says, David, if you had not crashed your car, you'd be dead today. And I still don't want to believe that God's behind this. And it's not good here. It's not good to be sober. I come back to Alcoholics Anonymous, and I came back on a wife card and a court card. And I would go to 2 meetings a month, because that's all I could stand, you people. And I go to this men's meeting out in the country with a bunch of old farts, and we're sober, it's good. They're all sober 20 plus years, and a lot of them are still my friends today, and they'd listen to my dribble. And I'd tell them how AA wasn't going to work for me. And you people suck, and screw you and the horse you rode in on, and I'm only here because my wife makes me come, she won't let me sign a court card, and by the way, I'd like the free cigarettes. And I still like the free cigarettes. Thanks, Todd. You're my savior. And, at 3 years dry, I'm drier than a popcorn fart. And we had moved. Another amazing thing, we bought a house. I'm unemployable. I'm half crippled, 3.5 years sober. We're barely making ends meet, and it's 2013 at the bottom of the housing market. We ended up buying a house. I don't know how we do that. I saw something. I said, hey, we could do something different, honey, because somebody else I saw buy a house and say, well, if they could buy a house, we could buy a house. Right? Is it odd or is it God? How does that happen? But we moved into that house, and there was the AA clubhouse that people used to bring the meeting to me when I was too sick to come to the meeting after I got out of that hospital. I was in the hospital for over 3 months, and I wasn't able to go out for very long, for another couple months after. And these AA guys started bringing a meeting to me against my wishes. My wife said there were some AA people that wanted to bring a meeting to me, and would I have them? And I knew that what the proper answer was. When your wife asks you that, you just say, yes, dear. And they came, and we had a great meeting, and I'm still friends with some of those people. When I was out in California, I got to see some of those people, and thank them. And they came from this place called The Grange. This AA, there was AA meetings there, and it was right down the street from my house, and I walked down there half hour late to a morning meeting at 3 years and 3 months, and probably right on 3 years and 3 months. Walk in that meeting, just wanting a free cigarette. I figured I could suffer your nonsense for a half an hour in this morning meeting, get a free cigarette. Something happened in that time. And I had come to believe in God. I had come to have some sort of faith in God and have some sort of relationship with God, only going to 2 meetings a week, or a month, I should say, because I lived out in the country, and I needed to have this one-on-one time with God. Right? Just me and God. To find a relationship with that God that when the book talks about don't protect the alcoholic from drinking, you can put him on the Greenland ice cap, and he wouldn't be safe there, because sure enough, an Eskimo will come by with a bottle and screw things up. You see, I need the God that's going to protect me from a drink in that situation. That's at least how I look at it today. Then I just thought it sucked and I wanted to die. And that's how I was when I come into this meeting, Alcoholics Anonymous, in March of 2013, and the light went back on. I decided, you know what? I walked in there wanting to be even with my wife, give her as many years sober as I gave her drunk, so I can be even, I can die in peace. And I walked out of that room after 30 minutes saying, you know what? I want to be sober. I want to live this life. I want to do this deal. And I got a new sponsor, and we went through the book again, and I got real. And I told somebody everything, and got to listen to his. He took me through the steps a different way. He took the steps with me, you know, kind of like you go to a men's retreat or something, you know, and that's kind of how we did them. And it got to be good to be here, and it got to be good to be sober. I got active in Alcoholics Anonymous. And I'm a pig. I had 3 home groups. Georgia's kind of strange. It seems like they frown on that. And in California, they do things a little bit different, but even people thought I was weird because I was a part of 3 different group consciences, because I was an active member of each one of those meetings. You know, these are meetings I went to 2 or 3 times a week, all of them. And I was active in them. And I don't do group consciences because I hate the bullshit that happens in a group conscience meeting. You know, and I went to one to vote somebody in to be the treasurer of our group, and I ended up being in that group conscience for 8 years, and was chair of that group 2 different times, and treasurer 2 different times, and blah 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 blah, and all well and good. You know, but what's happened here is that it went from, you know, I did not want to be here. I didn't believe I belonged here, and I'm trying to remove myself from the planet. Because it was not good to be here, and it was never good to be sober. All right. We talk about the bedevilments in page 52. You see, I'm that way sober. I'm absolutely useless to you and everybody around me. Sober. With no God. I'm that way sober with my hand out saying, what do you got for me? Now, how many of you are still walking around here? What do you got for me? And wondering why it's not good to be here and be sober. You know, sitting in that seat. Okay, so come in late, leave early, get your free cigarette, drink your coffee. I got money in my pocket, but man, all I got's a 20. I'm not going to go get changed. Whatever. I'm not a part of it. I don't show up at a group conscience. I'm not a part of it. And I don't have a sponsor, and I haven't taken the steps, and I wonder why it sucks to be sober. And you know, there's a price to be paid, and I have to pay it on a daily basis. But the promises for me happened, you know, when I get halfway through these amends, right? I find out what's blocking me from God in steps 4 and 5, and I share that. And I get into 6, 7, and I keep it real simple. You know, I come with sponsors and I sponsor guys that say, we go through the steps quickly, right away. You know, we'll go through them again and again and again at deeper levels, but that initial thing is we've got to get to where it's okay to be in my skin. You know, and I go make these amends. You see, I can look another man in the eye after I do a 5th step, and I can look God in the eye if I could see him that way. But I can't look you in the eye. You know, and I go out and I make these amends and I get right. And you know what? I don't know if any of you ever like going to the grocery store and you went around a corner too fast. You go, oop! I don't want to talk to that person. You know? Or you get invited to a party. You get invited to some function. Who's going to be there? Oh, no, I don't want to see that person. Nope. You're not telling the person on the other end what you did, but, you know, you did something with this old lady or whatever, or stole money from him, or, you know, I don't know, stole his dog and, you know, held at ransom for the insurance or the finder's fee. We used to do that when I was a kid. Anyway, I was a bad person, I told you. But, you know what happens? I do these things, and, you know, when I haven't had to go around a corner in a supermarket in 14 years and worry about who was around the corner. You know, I haven't got invited to a party and say, who's going to be there? Because I'm worried about who I'm going to see. You know? And, you know, what's my life look like today? So I got dressed late. I work in my jammies. God's blessed me with my own business. I work from home. I work on the computer. I talk on the phone and play on job sites all day. I recruit for Yamaha Motor Corporation and anybody else that'll pay me money to find them employees. And I got blessed with that job, that work. the opportunity, at 3 years sober, and is it odd or is it God? I was praying. You see, because I'm over 3 years without a drink, and I haven't made any. I made $500 in 3 years. But I'm still half crippled. I'm a 2-strike felon. I can't pass a background check. I can't do the kind of work that I'm trained to do anymore, and I don't know what to do. I know how to wait tables and I know how to cook, but you know what? They do background checks at restaurants these days. They want choir boys everywhere, and I'm praying to God. God, you know what? Just show me something that I can help my wife. I can take the burden off my wife. I can feel like a man and contribute something to my house. 48 hours later, my friend calls me and says, "Come on, David. It's time for you to go back to work. I'll teach you how to do this." Straight 100% commission job, working from home, doing something I don't know nothing about. I'm like, okay. And I worked 40 hours a week for 52 weeks to make $6,000 that first year. And I was happy to do it. And I was almost ready to quit, though. And another miracle happened. I got high-speed internet. That was a big deal in 2014, have high-speed internet, like 100 megabytes, And it's kind of slow today, but, and I've been doing that for 11 years. And I get to serve. You know what? I get to change people's lives, the people that I help get a new job, right? They're looking for something, and I get to change companies, how they work, by bringing new life and new blood into a new culture into companies. That's pretty darn cool. And they pay me a crap ton of money to do it. And you know what? I don't like it. Most of the time, my work is drudgery, talking to people, even doing interviews. I love talking to people. I'm a chatty guy. And half the people I talk to, it's like, God, why am I talking to you? Right? But I do it. It's my job. It's what I do. And my time is about up. But my life looks like today. I sponsor some guys. I've got a sponsor. I've got two meetings I go to every week. I go to that men's meeting on Mondays at Wicked Sober, and I go to the speaker meeting on Fridays. I have commitments. I'm the speaker getter at our speaker meeting, which Tim knows that can be a thankless job, and trying to keep people coming and keep fresh voices coming, and we're just starting at that. And then I'm the chair of our group conscience, and I'd rather not. Up here at first, I don't want to do that. I got better things to do, don't you know? I don't know what, but I could always find something better to do than what God wants me to do. And I married to that same woman. You see, I've got some consistency in my life. I've been with the same woman for, let me do the math here, be 18 years in October. Right. I've had the same car for 8 years. It's paid for. Right. I've had the same banking information for 18 years. I've had the same job for 11 years. I haven't committed any felonies knowingly in 14 years. And you might not think that's much, And some of you even be glad, like when you go, oh, wait a second, my driver's license, my registration match, and all 4 tires on my car match. That can be a big deal. Right? And those are all big deals. But the biggest deal is that I get to live a life of service today, in and outside of Alcoholics Anonymous. As I said, I come into Alcoholics Anonymous, and my whole life is about what can you do for me with the least amount of effort, work, or input from me. Right? Is that heart? Trey and I were talking about this. I'm a slothful, lazy SOB. I want my instinct is I want something for nothing. Right? And I'm running around with my hand out saying, what can you do for me? And I stay in Alcoholics Anonymous, and I practice these principles in all my affairs on a daily basis, the best that I can. And I have my hand out saying, what can I do for you? And that allows me to go home and sleep well at night and have it be good to be here and good to be sober. Thanks for having me.
Thank you, David. I love how relatable your story is.